I'm Mayor Eric Garcetti, and it is a great joy to welcome a dear friend, a great American, a once and always mayor, the Secretary of Transportation of the United States, Pete Buttigieg. Please give him a round of applause and thank him for being here. And I will be your MC, so I'm going to keep my remarks incredibly short just to say this. I want to thank the Biden administration, Joe Biden, this cabinet, and this Congress for proving, together with the American worker, that not only Christmas could be saved, but that American competitiveness, know-how, and a desire to rebuild this country is alive and well. We are a strong country. It is reflected here, where you see the source of 1 out of every 48 jobs in America come through these twin ports in this single harbor. So thank you to the men and women of the ILWU for the work that you have done to make this happen. Thank you for the way that folks did not see families, but instead made sure our families could be together this Christmas. I'll come back at the end, too. I know there's a request for Spanish and say a couple things, but we only have 13 speakers, so let's get to them. With that, let me invite first the leader of our working men and women, hundreds of thousands of men and women in everything from our hospitals to our docks, a man who himself has come up through the ranks of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, now heads up the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, a dear friend and also a great fighter for jobs in America. Please welcome Ron Herrera.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. As you heard, I'm Ron Herrera, and I'm the proud president of the LA County Federation of Labor, as well as the Port Division Director for the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Thank you. First, the Secretary of Transportation is here in what we feel are the 2 greatest ports in the world. And without your help, definitely we won't be able to move forward. I also want to thank our 2 port directors, Mario Cordero and Jean Soroca, as well as our 2 mayors. Work around this port cannot get done without a team, and all the electeds are here, all the stakeholders are here, are part of that team, and just wanted to say thank you. But I want to thank the workers. I want to thank the essential workers that make up the ports, because it's very important to acknowledge them. The port truck drivers who keep our economy rolling and our cargo moving, a special thanks to them. Now, more than ever, we have to stand with immigrant workers, Latino workers that exist here in this port and help them into the middle class. We have to help working families here in Los Angeles County. And we look forward to continuing our work, our partnership with this team, and we're going to do that. In closing, I want to thank everyone here today, because in crisis, we've all come together. We've rolled up our sleeves and are getting the job done. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Ron. And next, let me invite the head of the International Longshore Warehouse Union, ILWU. Willie Adams spent some time with the Secretary, I know, earlier. We have seen the men and women here every single time step up to the moment, not only called here by the crisis of the supply chain, but also the way that they have been great contributors to the community, and we are grateful for that. Thank you, Willie, to you and all the men and women of the ILWU for making America work and for also saving Christmas. Willie Adams.
First of all, I would just like to say I hope that we all can realize the moment that we're living in today, January 10th, 2022. The men and women of the ILWU, American patriots, but the last 2 years going to work, during COVID, then due to supply chain crisis. But it's not a crisis, it's an opportunity. The members of the ILWU, why do I call them heroes? They put the well-being of their lives and their families to keep their nation economies moving. And this is the first time since Franklin Delano Roosevelt that we had a president that was so bold and so brave. He picked up the phone and he called Secretary Pete and he goes, I want you to bring order out of chaos. he understood very well. Because in 2008, this country was on life support. The economy was hanging. President Obama asked Joe Biden, you go out and fix the economy. He called out to Secretary Buttigieg, and he put a team together. We were together at the White House October 15th. The timeline goes like this. Secretary Buttigieg, President Biden, Brian Deese, Economic Council, Gene Soroca, and Mario Cordero. Our secretary said, Brother Adams, I will be out of the port of L.A. Long Beach. He's here, but before that, he sent John Bakari out here. That was October 15th. November 15th, Secretary Buttigieg was going around the country, letting workers and business and everyone knows we got to pass this infrastructure bill, $1.2 trillion. Hadn't been done since Eisenhower. That's bold. That's thinking out of the box. To be bold, you got to go off script. But I want to talk about the men and women of the IOW. Among the 40-some deaths that we've had, they go to work every day realizing the responsibility to the economy. And we have to thank the media and the pundits and everyone who said it wouldn't be a Christmas. There was a Christmas. There were trees. There were gifts under the tree. More than that, Santa Claus showed up at my house, ate the cookies, and drank the milk. There's something when you think there's a crisis, this is an opportunity because our ports have been lacking in the infrastructure. We have our grandparents' infrastructure. This is a bipartisan issue. And why is it that California, with the 5th largest economy, that the Speaker of the House, the Minority Leader of the House, the Vice President of California, one of the ranking Democrats in the Senate, Dianne Feinstein, one of the most progressive governors on the planet, and why is it that we get millions of dollars for infrastructure in the East Coast, the Gulf, and the South get billions? Something is wrong. We have to put our issues in place. But I will tell you, for the working men and women of the IOW, those true patriots and saints, they will keep on working, and they will keep pushing it forward because we understand our responsibility to the American people, to our communities, and no longer will we look around the world and go, how come America's not leading again? We look at China. We used to lead the nation. We used to lead the world. Under President Biden and Secretary Buttigieg, we're getting back there. Long live the workers. Long live the Port of L.A. Long Beach. An injury to one is an injury to all. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us West Coast, best coast. We appreciate that. We're going to make sure that that's felt in Washington. 2 down, 10 to go. So I'm going to invite 2 port directors up at the same time, POLA and POLB. These 2 twin executive directors of what is together not only the first and second biggest ports in America, but together overwhelmingly the largest port complex, have really done an extraordinary job. They're going to share some of the latest statistics. Those of you who have covered this before might say, we've done this press conference before, but we have not, because the work that's come in from Washington, the help that has been able to be delivered here on the ground has truly been game-changing, and it's never been done before. And as Alan Lowenthal and I might say, as Jews, it wasn't just Christmas that was saved. Hanukkah came early, and this administration did their work so early that the Hanukkah gifts were there, too, at the beginning of December. Please welcome Gene Soroca and Mario Cordero, the executive directors of the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Welcome to the nation's largest port complex. Needless to say, we've experienced a crisis unlike anything in the century, whether it's a health pandemic and, of course, the impact to the supply chain. But like we like to say at the Port of Long Beach, in crisis, we build. Behind me, you see the new Gerald Desmond Bridge, soon to be named the Long Beach International Gateway Bridge, the second tallest cable-stayed bridge in the nation. Also, you'll see behind me to the left, or my left, the Long Beach Container Terminal, the state-of-the-art terminal. The bridge was a $1.4 billion endeavor. The terminal was another $1 billion endeavor. So I hope you're enjoying this inspiring view. We at the Port of Long Beach welcome the engagement of Secretary Buttigieg and the Biden-Harris administration. We are grateful that we are working with us to tackle the supply chain issues that have touched every household in the United States over the past 2 years. We have made progress thanks to the leadership of the Secretary, President Biden, and our Governor, Newsom. Keep in mind that at this complex, what you see here before you is a movement for 2021 of 20 million TEU containers. No other port complex in the nation approximates half that containerized cargo. Thankfully to the men and women who continue to work throughout this crisis, the essential workers, as Willie referenced, the IOW, truckers, and all the other union labor here that is so essential for the nation's commerce. Together, we are investing in the 24/7 framework to enhance throughput and efficiencies at the Port of Long Beach, the port of choice, to serve the nation's needs for the next 100 years. President Biden and President Buttigieg are fully committed in our efforts to create a new normal of a 24-hour operation to ensure we can clear the supply chain backlog and handle the flow of cargo in the future and whatever crisis comes upon us in the future. The recent $52.3 million grant from the Maritime Administration for construction of our state-of-the-art Pier B Rail Enhancement Facility is a significant statement by the federal government. It supports the kind and far-reaching project that will move cargo faster, improve air quality. It brings the Port of Long Beach to a new league of rail connectivity and will benefit this region for decades to come. Lastly, again, I'd like to thank Governor Newsom for his welcome investment in the state seaports as planned in his new budget, also Secretary David Kim and CalSTA. The governor's proposed budget includes significant and targeted investments in the state's seaports that will improve the efficiency, sustainability, and velocity of goods movement. With a $2.3 billion designated for ports and supply chain related needs, the state of California will make a decisive step forward in nurturing the benefits of economic impact to the international trade and brings the state, again, to a 21st century investment. The state that's the fifth largest economy of the world. And there's a reason why we're the fifth largest economy of the world. This is a big factor as to why that is. The funding will help strengthen the vigorous capital improvements and environmental sustainable projects and programs at the Port of Long Beach and at the San Pedro Bay complex, together with my good colleague, Gene Soroca. The day is good indeed for the Port of Long Beach, for the Port of Los Angeles, for the environmental progress that's been made here and the sustainable movement of cargo, and for the state of California. And again, Mr. Secretary, thank you and the Biden administration for making this happen as a collaborative partner with the state of California. Thank you.
Thanks, Mario, and thank you, Secretary Buttigieg, for your time and effort. Since the day you took office, you've partnered with us, and we greatly appreciate that. Also, the entire Biden-Harris administration, cabinet level and staff, and everyone in between who has allowed us to shine a spotlight on the importance of these ports, the supply chain, and what it means to the American worker and the American consumer. For over a year now, the administration in Washington and our administration under Governor Newsom in Sacramento have continued to work with us, bringing together C-suite partners from the private sector as well as federal, state, and local officials to keep this port complex moving forward. It's been that convening power that still has us meeting 3 times a week with industry stakeholders, elected appointed officials, and many across the spectrum of the supply chain to make change and improve. And our unified focus on the American worker has never been stronger. As mentioned by Mario, the $2.3 billion US that have been announced yesterday by Governor Newsom in support of ports in the state's annual budget complements the $17 billion in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that is now law. The combination of both is our call to the private sector to follow us in that investment, make this supply chain and our workforce even stronger for tomorrow. And as Mayor Garcetti said, the numbers are all starting to move in our favor. Economic growth of potentially 5% in 2021, 4% in 2022. Retail sales 8.5% higher than they were a year ago, while inventories nationwide are as strong, if not stronger, than they were before nightly newscasts shown helicopters flying over our ports and counting ships. The work that we're doing on the ground is paying dividends for the country and the economy as we look forward to the other side of COVID-19. In addition to all of that, there's one other number I'd like you to remember, and that's the $110 million in the state budget and other dollars we can leverage at the federal level along with private sector in the nation's first workforce training center specifically geared to the supply chain and goods movement located right here at the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. Mr. Secretary and honored guests, now it comes time to do the work. And we're on the ground and we're pushing every day, but we thank you for your unwavering support across the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene and Mario. And for those of you who are keeping track, since we've had the fee threatened, which we've pushed off every single week, 60% of the backlog cargo has now been moved out of the port of Los Angeles. I'm sure there's a similar number in Long Beach as well. So thank you, Gene, for that extraordinary work. 4 down, 6 to go. We have next 2 extraordinary women who are part of our amazing county leadership. Our chair of the Board of Supervisors and the supervisor for this district. Both of them former members of Congress. Also one a former cabinet member herself. Our chair, Hilda Solis, and the woman who termed that this complex is really America's port, not just the Port of LA and Long Beach, Janice Hahn, a former colleague of mine on the City Council, and we're so pleased to have them both. Please, if you can start with the chairwoman of the board, and then we'll hear from Janice Hahn next.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I do wear 2 hats. I'm currently serving, representing the Board of Supervisors in District 1 and chair of the board for LA Metro. And on behalf of all the directors, I want to say thank you so much, Secretary Buttigieg, for being here with us today. And not just this one time, but so many times that you have reached out, extended a hand to help us, provide us with information and encouragement, and shown us the way that we can help to rebuild our country. And I really do want to give a big thank, and if I could, a big hug to our president and the vice president for all that they have done to keep Los Angeles County front and center, and to really help us restore this gift that we have here of the ports. Alongside all the men, working men and women that live and work here, this port, both Long Beach and Los Angeles, handle 40% of all incoming container goods for the entire United States. Who would have thought? That puts us on the map. We are who we are, but we know what we're doing. We know that goods movement has been a critical issue for both myself and for Supervisor Hahn. And in the past few years, especially regarding the 710 South Corridor, that freeway where LA Metro is in the midst of reimagining the corridor with sustainability and equity in mind and environmental justice. Implementation of a traditional highway expansion project no longer really meets our goals. The 710 South Freeway is a way now for us to look at how we can move people and goods more efficiently without displacing them, and also worsening the pollution that has burdened that corridor. And with federal dollars from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, we'll be able to do just that. The bipartisan infrastructure bill will allow Los Angeles County to enhance our infrastructure and make our economy good, well, and working for everyone. And it will help us create green jobs that we know are most in need. As former U.S. Secretary of Labor under President Obama, and as a current chair of LA Metro, I understand how critical it is to foster good paying jobs and pathways that lead us into sustainability. Investment in infrastructure creates jobs, but transportation infrastructure is a workforce investment project. These investments will help lift our economy and our hardworking low and middle income working families. The public transit and transportation infrastructure means critical access to education, to workforce training, to healthcare, to recreational destinations, and the goods movement. LA Metro is delivering on a multi-billion-dollar capital program for transportation projects that will connect all of our communities across the county. The projects will not only help get people from point A to point B, but they'll also help to create high-road, well-paying jobs. The infrastructure bill will help create career pathways in green and sustainable industries, even faster than before, and crucial as we recover from this pandemic. We will need high-skilled individuals, a trained workforce to deliver on these infrastructure priorities, and you've already heard some of those deliverables that we know are coming our way. But through continued funding from the federal government, we'll be able to advance workforce initiatives like the partnership between my office and the electric bus manufacturer Cordero. If you haven't heard, that's a new industry that's growing, the electric bus manufacturer Cordero, which gives individuals from disadvantaged backgrounds job training and credentials in green manufacturing. We'll also be able to leverage funding from the state, which is seeing a massive surplus right now. And just yesterday, as you heard, Governor Newsom released a proposed budget which includes $9 billion for transportation projects across this great state. But more importantly, including $1 billion for projects right here in Southern California. We're going to leverage these funds and funds that we're going to leverage also from the infrastructure bill to electrify our fleets, capture and treat more stormwater, make it easier for residents to walk and bike through their neighborhoods, address pollution along corridors like the 710 South Freeway, and close the digital divide for communities of color. I'm so proud to stand here today with our Secretary of Transportation, along with all of my colleagues, to continue to support sustainable green infrastructure and good jobs for all Angelenos. I want to thank you and the rest of the Biden administration, Mr. Secretary, for your uplifting works on behalf of our communities. Thank you so much. And very briefly in Spanish, si puedo, por favor, quiero dar las gracias a todos también como supervisora del primer distrito y el condado de Los Ángeles y presidenta de la Junta de Metro. Quiero darle un bienvenido al secretario del Departamento de Transporte de Estados Unidos, Pete Buttigieg, que está aquí con nosotros para darnos ayuda para restaurar, mejorar la infraestructura a través de todo el condado de Los Ángeles. Gracias a todos los fondos de la ley de infraestructura, tendremos una economía más fuerte que nunca. Dicha ley no solo nos ayudará a mejorar el sistema de transporte público, pero también crear trabajos bien pagados, lo cual es muy necesario después del impacto de la pandemia. Y los fondos que recibimos de parte del Estado nos van a ayudar a cumplir esta meta. Ayer el gobernador Newsom dio a conocer su propuesta de presupuesto, en el cual $1,000 millones serán destinados aquí en el sur de California. Tantos los fondos estatales como federales nos va a ayudar a tener un sistema de transporte ecológico con autobuses eléctricos, cero emisiones, un sistema de aguas pluviales mejores y también comunidades con menos polución. Acceso al Internet que alcanza a todas las familias. Estoy muy orgullosa de estar aquí con el secretario y todos los colegas que están aquí para crear proyectos de infraestructura sostenible y ecológicamente. Gracias a todos ustedes y toda la administración del presidente Biden y vicepresidente Harris. Quiero dar las gracias a todos que están aquí hoy día. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Hilda Solis. It's so fun for me to serve with you, a former member of the Obama cabinet, on the historic 5 women County Board of Supervisors. So hello to everyone up high up here. And I just wanted to add My welcome, as everyone has said, to Secretary Buttigieg to LA County. Thank you for your work on behalf of our nation's transportation infrastructure, especially, as everyone said, on addressing the supply chain issues that we've seen here and around the world during this pandemic. I have represented our ports and our port communities for over 20 years, first on the LA City Council, then when I was a member of Congress, and now on the Board of Supervisors. And I know how important our ports are to our nation. And that's why when I was in Congress, I started the first ever bipartisan Congressional Ports Caucus so that I could elevate ports in our national dialogue and get them the federal resources that they need and convince the rest of the members of Congress that if you want to talk about the economy and jobs, you have to talk about our ports. They're the backbone of our economy. And the men and women who move the goods are the backbone of the goods movement industry. And our ports are gateways to the world for American manufacturers, and they support millions of jobs. But, Mr. Secretary, for all of the good that our ports are responsible for, I also know that there have been some negative impacts. I represent the port communities of Long Beach, Wilmington, San Pedro, all of the gateway cities along the 710 corridor that Supervisor Solis was talking about. And while the rest of the country counts on our ports to make sure that their flat-screen TV is in stock for Christmas, the communities that I represent bear the burden of the congestion, the air pollution. For years, this area was even known as the diesel death zone. But it doesn't have to be this way, and you're showing us that we don't have to choose between clean air and good jobs. We can and should have both. We just need to invest in those solutions. And that's why this bipartisan infrastructure law is going to make such a difference in the communities that I represent. It's an unprecedented funding stream for projects that not only make our goods movement system more efficient, but lifts the burdens off of our communities. The law includes that $17 billion in funding for port infrastructure, including $52 million for building the on-dock rail right here at Pier B in Long Beach, so that containers get unloaded directly from the ships and right onto the rail. That's going to mean thousands of those containers are diverted off the dirty trucks and off our freeways and onto the Alameda Corridor, which will be a big difference for the communities. And this infrastructure law also invests the $7.5 billion into a national network of electric vehicle charging stations. And I know a lot of people think of these charging stations as being used by commuters who happen to drive electric vehicles, but this is really about the future of charging those zero-emission electric trucks of the future, which are coming soon, and helping us to once and for all destroy that diesel death zone. And just as important as investments in the ports and goods movement, here's a dragonfly. I understand that's good luck if it lands on you. There's the secretary right there. You go. Go land on him. But, you know, there's other transit projects that this bill will help us with. And in L.A., we hope to finally deliver that West Santa Ana branch rail that connects a dozen mostly low-income communities with a single-seat ride from the city of Artesia to all the way to downtown Los Angeles, and we need your help with that. Thank you, Secretary, for being here. Thank you for President Biden's leadership to accelerate the long-needed goods movement projects. And with this bipartisan infrastructure law and its investment in zero-emissions goods movement, our ports, our transit projects, we have a clear path towards a future with cleaner air, safer streets, and good-paying jobs. Thank you, Secretary, for being here. It's just been great.
Thank you so much to both of our extraordinary supervisors. And don't worry, Secretary, we'll be sending not only the West Santa Ana branch, we'll be sending the East Valley, San Fernando Valley line. We have like 7 lines that have come across your desk, and you're going to be well known in Los Angeles as helping build a new transportation infrastructure here. So we thank you in advance. Next, it's my great pleasure to introduce somebody who's not only a fellow mayor, but maybe my closest friend as a mayor in this country, somebody who's done an amazing job navigating this pandemic, who leads this port and the environmental justice issues the supervisor just brought up in our local communities, and really deserves so much. I know there are many jobs ahead in his career, one which is reflected here. Hopefully won't get political, but it is a great joy to introduce my dear friend and a great American mayor, Robert Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome to Long Beach, and of course to our secretary. Very grateful. He actually spent his morning meeting not just with our port officials, but also with our labor representatives and community members to talk about the issues that our ports are facing and around infrastructure. I just want to say two things. I think the first that's really important is that all of the doomsday predictions about Christmas not arriving or the shelves not being stocked never came to pass. And thanks to the Secretary, his incredible team at the Department of Transportation, and of course the President and his leadership, we had what I believe has been a really smooth holiday season with folks being able to buy what they need to buy. So that is because of the Secretary's leadership and everyone at the White House as well. So we are grateful. I know on behalf of Long Beach, Los Angeles, the country, thank you. And it's important to note that this would not have happened without the direct intervention of the President. The President and the Secretary made the phone calls to the large retailers. They connected with our port directors on a regular basis. They literally helped us move cargo faster. And as you can probably see, also created programs to ensure that ships are now at berth much further away from shore, and that helps air quality and protect the neighborhoods. And so, Mr. Secretary, thank you for your incredible work. And the second thing I just want to add is a huge thank you on behalf of the City of Long Beach and the Port of Long Beach. We have received this incredibly large grant in this first round of infrastructure dollars for ports, about $52 million. To create this rail-to-terminal system that, again, will make our ports more sustainable and get ports moving much faster. And so thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. We're proud to have him here and in Long Beach and Los Angeles. And just briefly en español, más voy a decir que nos da mucho orgullo a tener el secretario acá en la ciudad de Long Beach y Los Ángeles. Él ha visto todos los puertos acá y yo sé que él va a traer nosotros los recursos para la infraestructura que necesitamos para tener los mejores puertos en todos Estados Unidos. Muchas gracias. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And next, we've had an amazing partner in Governor Newsom, and I want to thank him as well for the budget that was just put out, that put on the table money for training to protect the jobs of the future for our ILWU, our Teamsters and others. It'll be a model in this country, one we look forward to doing jointly with this administration, which I know is excited about it too, that put money on the ground to continue some of the work of what Mayor Garcia mentioned as well, to help us get around rail lines and other places where there's bridges so that both the trains and the trucks can get in and move this cargo more quickly, and who's been a great environmental champion to make sure we get to those zero-emission buses. The leader for Governor Newsom has been his Secretary of Transportation, our Secretary of Transportation, who's also done a great job in Washington, D.C. in the previous administration, not the Trump one, the one before that. And I want to thank him for his great leadership. Please welcome Secretary of Transportation for the state of California, David Kim.
Thank you very much, Mayor Garcetti. I, too, would like to add my thanks to Secretary Buttigieg for his first official trip to California in his time as Secretary of Transportation. The fact that he is here at America's ports reflects his priorities and the priorities of the President and Vice President. Your presence here means everything to us. Thank you so very much. I believe this region is on the verge of something truly monumental. Why do I say that? Several reasons. Number one, as you've heard, the governor unveiled his budget for this year, truly historic. $2.3 billion for investments in the ports, in our goods movement and supply chain system, $1.2 billion of that for port infrastructure upgrades, the rest of it for workforce training, zero-emission vehicles, including drayage trucks here at the ports, and for various other purposes. The message we are sending through this budget, the message the governor is sending, is we have skin in the game. Frankly, that has never been said before. The state of California has not historically participated in the development of our ports, goods movement, and freight system. That is changing through this budget. It is historic. The other point I want to mention, the governor and Secretary Buttigieg entered into a strategic partnership a few months ago that puts the state and federal government together when it comes to advancing a coordinated program, a holistic program of freight, goods movement, and supply chain projects. We're going to do this together in a holistic, coordinated way. And frankly, that's a change from the past where we did things in a piecemeal way. One project here, another project there, not really coordinated. All of that is changing, and thanks to the good work of DOT, we are getting ready a whole series of projects that will be ready to compete for innovative financing programs at DOT. So that is a very exciting development. Third thing, as you've heard, through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, what a golden opportunity, $17 billion for port infrastructure, and this is an incredible investment. We are going to use that state investment through the governor's budget to leverage and match every available discretionary dollar through the IIJA. I believe this region will compete well, will compete hard, and that you will see the benefits and the difference on the ground in the months and years to come. This is a golden opportunity for this region, and I believe we are ready to seize the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And next we have the trio of our legislators, our members of Congress, who represent this district, adjacent to that district, but our coast. And I want to start actually with our member here, Alan Lowenthal, who has been a great champion here, jointly together with Annette Barragan, who represents the Port of LA, Long Beach and LA together, and Ted Lieu, who's just up the coast as well. Three real champions of American jobs, of American progress, of fighting for the West Coast, making sure that we're there, and without whom we wouldn't have gotten the passage of this historic infrastructure package. So please welcome these three extraordinary leaders, starting with Congressman Alan Lowenthal.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and join everyone. And let me echo others in welcoming Secretary Buttigieg to Long Beach and to LA. I've represented, as pointed out, the Port of Long Beach, first as a city council member, then as in the California State Assembly, then in the California State Senate, and now in Congress for 30 years consecutively. I'm proud to serve on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee in Congress, and I'm also proud to follow my dear friend Janice Hahn in now chairing the Congressional Ports Caucus. I can say confidently that there's no precedent for the crisis which has rocked our supply chain for the last 18 months. But we as a nation and as this administration and Congress, we are responding. The administration has stepped up to coordinate between stakeholders, find solutions, add capacity to our supply chains, work with the ports, and Congress has held hearings, passed unprecedented resources to address what are decades of underinvestment. Delays, as we've heard today, are falling. We have avoided the holiday crisis, and more funding is on the way. As we've already heard, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act is going to deliver and is beginning to deliver billions of dollars to our ports, to intermodal connectors, and to key freight corridors. It's critical that these funds are targeted at the most nationally significant projects like those here in Long Beach and Los Angeles. But I also want to point out, and as some members have, people have addressed, to highlight the critical programs to address and reduce the environmental impact of goods movement, including new grants now that have been put out to reduce truck idling, but really to make sure that any projects include our frontline communities and we reduce pollution. I want to say that the Build Back Better agenda, which we must put into, we must pass out of the Senate, must build on these successes with billions more for ports, which will expand capacity and critically aid in our transition to zero-emission operations. Just in closing, I'd like to say all of these are still only a first step. They are in and of themselves tremendously important, but not enough. I personally believe that Congress and the administration must identify a permanent and sustainable funding stream that will improve our supply chain throughout the nation and be able to move goods more efficiently, all the while reducing greenhouse gases. That's the charge before us, and the federal government is going to have to play on an ongoing basis a role in that. So make no mistake, we're struggling with some of the most challenging issues in the history of the modern economy. However, the state, the ports, the Congress, and the administration are stepping up to meet this moment, and I'm proud to be here as a member of Congress. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Congressmember Nanette Barragan. I represent the Los Angeles Port and partner with Alan on all things port to make sure we're fighting for our port communities. I want to also welcome Secretary Buttigieg today for starting out in my port in Los Angeles as you boarded a ship to come over here to Long Beach. I want to make sure we don't lose perspective about what has been happening in this last year. The President of the United States, with his cabinet, has created over 6 million jobs in his first year. Absolutely. That's causes for a round of applause. This is the greatest ever job growth in American history. Unemployment is down to 3.9%, and jobless claims are at historic lows. Now add on that the jobs bill that we're talking about today, and that's what it is. It's a bill designed to create jobs as well as investing in our infrastructure. And that includes in our port communities, which is why we're so glad that there's $17 billion of federal funds in the jobs bill that will go to ports. And one of the things I'm proud to see, Mr. Secretary, is that you're here to see the operation. You're here to see the impact that we have, not just locally, but across this entire country, to make sure that our ports community here at LA and Long Beach get their fair share, something that has been lacking in years prior. And knowing that the administration is taking ports seriously and the investment in ports seriously is reflected in the Secretary's visit today and in other secretaries who've come, like Secretary Walsh, who came to also take a look at that. And I want to thank the Department of Transportation for their recent funding to Long Beach. We've got to get LA in that as well to make sure we're investing in rail and make sure we're investing in everything we can to help the supply chain issues, something that I know that the administration, along with you, Mr. Secretary, have been at the forefront in doing. It's about putting our workers to work. It's about making sure that we have more truck drivers that can move the goods, but also investing in this the ports that have been long overdue and our infrastructure that's been long overdue, which is partially of why we are here today. When you combine COVID and you combine the lack of modernization in the past in our infrastructure, it gets us to where we are today, but that is changing. With the Jobs Act, it's changing with this administration, and that is changing with the Secretary, who is making it a point to go out to look at communities and see where we need to invest our dollars. Now, I also want to quickly touch on the environmental justice issues. As we know, the backup of our ships are causing impacts to our community. We know the truck traffic that comes in and out from the Inland Empire and across to Los Angeles along that 710 corridor. You can just go down there and count the trucks, the big rig trucks that are there, and the impacts those have on their community have led this area to be called a diesel dead zone, and we need to address that. And the second piece of that is in the Build Back Better Act, which is why it's so critically important that we in Congress continue to push to get these critical infrastructure dollars on the first part, but the other dollars that are in Build Back Better, which are also part of one of my bills called the Climate Smart Sports Bill, that would invest billions of dollars right here to go to zero emissions, which is the other key component on finishing the work that we have to do to modernize our ports. And so I just wanted to thank you all for including me today, for being here today, for being able to welcome the Secretary. It's investments in the jobs bill and one that was done on a bipartisan basis, but it's also investments in Build Back Better that are so important for our nation's economy, the quality of life in our ports community, and the environment. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Congressman Ted Lieu, and let me first say what it's an honor for me to be in Congress with Congress members Barragan and Lowenthal. I see firsthand the great job they do representing their constituents in the ports of LA and Long Beach on Capitol Hill. I'm also thrilled that Secretary Buttigieg is with us here today. Remember under the former administration when we had bare shelves? Remember under the former administration when we ran out of toilet paper? That didn't happen under the Biden administration. And that's in part due to the great work of the Secretary and the Department of Transportation. Last year, Democrats delivered for the people by passing the American Rescue Plan. It was designed to jumpstart our economy and to help in our economic recovery, and it worked. We now have the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. We got more shots and vaccines into people's arms. Schools reopened. We got money out to public safety and local governments to prevent layoffs. And then we followed that up with a transformative infrastructure jobs bill. I was proud to have been part of the House Democratic leadership team that found a pathway to yes and sent that bill to President Biden's desk for his signature. Over $1 trillion to rebuild roads, bridges, and highways, to get EV charging stations across America, to get lead out of our water pipes, and to put broadband into inner cities and rural areas and everywhere in between. And as you heard earlier, you're getting streams of money not just from the federal government, but from local jurisdictions in the state. And when we get all these matching funds, we can build bigger and better projects. And so the message we are all gathered here to send today is that help is on its way.
They say short speeches win elections. I'm voting for you, Mr. Lieu. I'm voting for you. Thank you. Well done. And thank you to everybody. Now, the main event, what a personal joy and privilege it is to introduce another dear friend, not in the political way people say that, but truly a dear friend, a great American, somebody who years ago somebody said, oh, you guys have so much in common. You both served in the Navy, you both studied in England, you both are mayors, both have Mediterranean roots. You guys should really get to know each other. And one of the joys of my public service life has been finding in Pete Buttigieg a great American and a great human being. Now a father and a husband. Those titles weren't part of his bio when I first met him. Somebody who represented an area just north of where my wife grew up in Indiana. Somebody who comes from the heartland but always speaks from the heart. One of the smartest people you will ever meet, let alone in public life. And I got to say, while our president and this entire administration deserves credit for saving Christmas, this is a man who saved Christmas. And in español, este secretario salvaron la Navidad. Es mi placer introducir, it's my pleasure to introduce our nation's Secretary of Transportation and a dear friend of Los Angeles and all of ours, the one and only Pete Buttigieg.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor, for your warm welcome, for the kind words, for guiding our event right now, and for your true friendship. Mayor Garcetti is a mayor's mayor, so well respected and admired in the community of mayors, and I can tell living and breathing his service to the people of Los Angeles for literally every day, even as we anticipate him joining the administration with the very wise choice of the president to ask him to lead the U.S.'s representation in one of our most important relationships abroad. Thrilled to be here likewise with Mayor Garcia. Thank you for hosting us. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you for reminding me that I wasn't the only young mayor in the ranks back when I was doing it. It's funny, we were on the boat and people were trying to get his attention and kept saying mayor, and my head still spins around to look that way, forgetting sometimes how things have changed. But during such challenging times, you and Mayor Garcetti have delivered such admirable leadership to those you serve. We're so glad to be here with union leadership, with Ron Herrera and the Teamsters, recognizing that sometimes a trucking issue 1,000 miles away might actually explain a shipping issue right here on the coasts. We want to thank Willie Adams and the longshore workers that I had an opportunity to spend time with earlier today. Truly the people who we have counted on in so many ways, who every single American depends on, whether you know it or not. And who very much do not have the opportunity to come to work by video conference. We appreciate everything that you've done and the sacrifices that your members have made. To Supervisors Solis and Han, thank you for your leadership. I think you demonstrate what us current or former local leaders always say, which is that where the rubber really meets the road is in local leadership, and in county leadership in particular. There is all of the challenge and very little of the glamour that goes with other roles in service, and I've so admired what you do, especially with your focus on transportation and on environmental justice. I'm delighted to be here with Secretary Kim, who is someone so widely respected in the community of transportation leaders. And I'll have a little more to say about this in a moment, but it's really remarkable, the commitment that the state has made when it comes to the support and for the support for transportation in the budget. And to Representative Liu, Representative Berrigan, Representative Lowenthal, it is no exaggeration to say that thanks to your decision to support the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, there will be direct and major improvements in the economic vitality and the environmental sustainability of Southern California. And we are so thankful for your leadership and for your support in that regard. And lastly, to be with the directors of the ports of LA and Long Beach, Gene Soroca and Mario Cordero, in just the latest of our engagements. We were together virtually in July when I asked the West Coast ports and shipping and supply chain community to come together. We were together in October with President Adams and with President Biden at the White House, and we're together right now. Not just talking about, but enacting the kinds of key problem solving and solutions that are keeping goods moving to where they need to be. The simple reason that we're here is every gift under a tree, every piece of clothing somebody is wearing, even the devices on which these remarks will be played, chances are they came here on a container through a port like this one, on ships like these, unloaded and transported by workers like those that President Adams and Ron Herrera represent. Supply chains are human. Supply chains are people who use equipment in order to get goods to where they need to be. And there's no better place to talk about that than here, where we see the #1 and #2 largest container ports in the country, supporting so many jobs, not just around the region, but around the country. When there is an issue affecting ports here, you will feel it as far away as my Indiana hometown. And I'll tell you, the strains that we've experienced are not because the ports became less capable or because the workers delivered less output. In fact, the reverse is true, as was mentioned earlier. One of the reasons why Christmas was not, in fact, canceled is that ports like LA and Long Beach moved record levels of goods, allowing an all-time record high in terms of retail sales this holiday season. Considering the pressures that this country and these communities have been under, that is an extraordinary achievement. Ports have processed 14% more containers than the previous record. People received almost 99% of their packages on time or with minimal delays from major shippers. And I would add that not only is this about presents under the tree, but this is about essential goods like medical goods that are needed in this moment of continued public health challenge. Now, we're going to continue to see challenges. So we're very proud of what was achieved here, but the other side of the coin is that as long as the pandemic persists, as long as we are making up for decades of past disinvestment, we are going to see impacts on shipping times and shipping costs. But that's exactly why we're here, not waiting 1 minute to address supply chain disruptions. Now, supply chains are owned and operated by a lot of different actors, most of them private sector, and rightly so. But we have been partnering with everybody who has a hand in that. in order to make sure we deliver results. We're partnering with the state of California, and I'm delighted to team up with Governor Newsom on the emerging projects agreements that will lead to a fast track for access to financing of over $5 billion for infrastructure projects that bear on our supply chains. And I'm looking forward to working with Governor Newsom on the major investments that were proposed and rolled out yesterday in transportation, including in supply chain infrastructure in the California state budget. Everything goes better when states and local leaders and the federal government are working together. We've partnered with the Department of Transportation, with Port Envoy John Porcari, and with the ports leading the way on 24/7 operations, on fees that help to motivate shippers to move their products more quickly, on ways to prioritize medical supplies, cutting sometimes by weeks the amount of time that life-saving supplies got to where they were needed. And the results included an almost 50% reduction in long-dwelling containers on the docks going into the holidays, record levels of goods on shelves, cargo leaving the ports and getting to people significantly faster. We're also very supportive of the new system that keeps these ships further at sea in order to reduce the impacts on air quality. Although I want to note this does not mean that the issue has been solved. It's not just how many ships can you see, it's how many ships are on their way. And that's what we're trying to make sure we clear the way for going forward. But as I see and saw during our tour earlier in our conversation, the intention, the vision for the future that's going on, the attention to environmental justice and making sure that more throughput does not necessarily mean more pollution for nearby communities, the attention to training and the funding commitments you heard about to make sure that these jobs, which are only going to become more high-tech and more high-skill each passing year, are supported with investments in our human capital. I am very confident that the visionary leadership here, coupled with the visionary leadership from President Biden and this administration, will deliver a better future for all of us, and with Southern California in so many ways leading the way. And we're going to be there to help. We just recently were able to announce that $52 million commitment to help with on-dock rail for the Port of Long Beach, and that was with the funds that we had last year. I cannot wait to put to work the funds from that $17 billion being committed to ports, thanks to that bipartisan infrastructure law. So nothing about this will be easy. But everything about this can make us proud because of the partnership, because of the teamwork, because of the commitment, and because of the will to make the investments that America has needed for a very long time. And there's no better way, no better place to showcase that than right here at LA and Long Beach. So with that, happy to take some questions as they might arise. I noticed there were... all right.
7 minutes.
All right. I noticed there are a couple of journalists here, so I thought you might have some questions. Alex. Well, the number one thing is supporting the human beings who actually operate all of this. And that's true on site at the ports. That's why we've got to support things like the kind of training center and training facilities that have been discussed. But it's also why we've got to make sure that on things, again, maybe 1,000 miles inland, like a trucking issue, that we're supporting job quality and access and compensation for our truckers so that we can keep things moving. But a lot of this is about physical infrastructure. And the physical infrastructure is going to get a lot better thanks to the funds in the President's infrastructure law and the support of the leaders that you see around me. Well, this is exactly why we're in dialogue with organized labor, to make sure that the innovations that are coming in transportation technology are good for workers as well as good for the bottom line. That doesn't happen automatically, but it can happen. When the ATM was introduced, many people thought that would mean the end of the employment of human beings in retail banking. The opposite wound up happening. It's just that the people, the tellers, wound up doing slightly different functions. And when you look at what it takes, hopefully you have to do nothing more than physically look at the cranes to understand. But these are very high skill and very high responsibility positions that are needed in order to operate these ports. So yes, some of the tasks associated with doing the work that the longshore workers do every day will evolve. will become sophisticated and complicated in new ways. But that human factor is never going to go away. And it's very important as we look at these new technologies to assess them, first of all, to see if the automation or the other technological developments deliver on the promised efficiency gains, because they often will not. And secondly, to make sure that the indispensable human side is being supported just as much as any investment in physical brick and mortar improvements. So there's no question that when you have a scarcity of access to shipping, you're going to see upward pressure on prices, and that's going to be part of our challenge when it comes to inflation. I would break it into two parts. When there's actual wrongdoing, there will be enforcement, and that is something anytime that the administration sees it, that the president has directed there be action, and that's true on anything from any evidence of gas price gouging to anything affecting goods. But also a lot of this is market forces, and what we have to do, knowing that nobody wants the federal government to own and operate warehouses or grocery stores or shipping companies, but we do have a responsibility to make sure that the physical infrastructure that those private sector supply chains sit on are well maintained, and that there is the right kind of coordination among the different players. That's why we sat down virtually at the White House with leaders from the shipping companies, from the retail companies, and from the people who are directly involved in ports and trucking to talk about how we can better coordinate to get goods moving to where they need to be. That improves the effect on prices. Anytime there's evidence of that, then that is something that requires vigorous enforcement. Yeah, so a lot of the times it is the availability not only of imported cars, but of course in our U.S. auto industry that's so important, the availability of certain parts or components. That's one more element of why we have a sense of urgency about improving the flow of goods across the country. And until those bottlenecks are resolved, you're going to continue to see more issues. I will say we're less vulnerable to those issues when we onshore more things like electric vehicle battery production, and you're going to continue to see us energetically supporting that so that we are less dependent on some of those choke points going into the future, knowing that the future is largely electric.
There's a set of new cars just behind the Secretary.
There we go. There you go. Yeah. All right.
Any other questions?
So at this time, the best I can do is refer you to the FAA for more information. Obviously, the bottom line for the FAA is always safety, and we'll err on the side of caution to make sure that the airspace is safe at all times. What's that? Again, that's as much as I can say about it at the moment. All right, last question. I missed the last part, sorry. Well, that's one of the reasons we're so excited about this federal bipartisan infrastructure law, right? I mean, the formulas alone are directing billions of dollars to the state of California. But I would also say when it comes to those competitive grants that my department will be administering, I expect Southern California to be very competitive. And I say that having seen not just the pride, but the effectiveness of the people that we've been engaging with. And the determination to meet all of our goals as a department: safety, economic growth, climate, equity, and preparation for the future. You see all of that at stake in what's happening around us, what's happening behind us. But the other thing I would point to is the alignment and the partnership at all of the different levels that you see represented right here: city, county, ports, federal, state. That doesn't happen everywhere I go. And so at the end of the day, it's going to be folks on the ground, these local officials. Komiajise is here with the MPO that will be deploying a lot of these dollars. Having that kind of alignment is critically important, and one of the reasons I'm optimistic about how Southern California will fare as these funds increasingly flow. Thanks again for the opportunity to be here, and thanks to our fantastic leaders here for all of your work.